welcome to our second live of Hiire Talks. This is not an interview, this is a conversation with Diogo. We will talk about business, careers, crypto coins, and a lot of good stuff. Feel free also to interact and leave your questions in the chat. Today we have Diogo Pires, the co-founder and the CTO of Zharta, one of the first NFT companies in Portugal in these fields. And today we'll talk about one of the first crypto coins that were made in Portugal, NFTs, and the present and the future of blockchain. That is a technology that everyone talks, not a lot of people understand. And today with Diogo, we'll try to get his knowledge and his view about these topics. I always like to show how I met Diogo. So I think it was a very funny story in 2017, if I'm not mistaken. Me and Diogo, we were at Sinfo, one of the biggest job fairs in Portugal at Técnico. We were right beside each other. So Diogo was working at Apto. I was working at Fidzai, and our stands were near each other, and we meet there. We didn't spoke for, I think, 4 years. And then I was looking for blockchain experts, and Diogo was one of the few persons that I found with that title or those skills on LinkedIn. And I was like, oh, I remember this guy. I need to talk with him again. Because we already met. So I ended up to hire him for MBIO for that area. And fast forward a couple of years, Diogo founded Zharta, I founded Hiire, and I ended up to help Diogo to found engineers for his team. And our relationship keeps growing since then. So I think it's also a very interesting story to share with our audience, because this type of networking events and typing of job fairs, it's always great to meet people, and in the future we ending up to have other type of relationships because the life happens. So Diogo, thanks a lot for being here with me and to accept my invitation.
And one thing, I don't know if you remember, but I still have somewhere at my house those green glasses, plastic ones from Fidzai that you gave me at the time. It's simple, so I still have them somewhere.
So a good tip: if you are in a job fair, give glasses to everyone, because that can be forward in the future. So Diogo, let's jump quickly to the topic. So I think blockchain, it's a big scope nowadays. A lot of people are getting in it because of crypto, but it's much more than crypto nowadays. Can you tell us how blockchain show up in your life? So the when, the why, and the how this type of technology and this area show up in your life.
Blockchain, it first appeared to me in, if I'm not mistaken, 2015. When I was still in college. I remember reading first actually the Ethereum yellow paper, which then led me to read the Bitcoin white paper, which is much easier to read than the yellow paper from Ethereum. As an engineer, it just sparked my interest, but nothing too serious. It just got a bit more serious when in 2017, when the opportunity to actually work on it presented itself. At the time, I was, as you said, I was working at Aptoid, and Aptoid is third-party app store for mobile applications on Android. I started working there on 2016, and in 2017 it was actually very interesting because got together some people in the company. So this Aptoid CEO Paul 300 got together some people in the company to discuss what were the biggest problems in third-party app stores. So app stores that are, in case of the Android, they are not Play Store from Google. Mm-hmm. And we started discussing what in our vision were the biggest problems, and we focused on 3. And when we started discussing how can we solve them, what are the things that we can do to solve these issues, we ended up discussing blockchain as a solution. That's actually when it started. We then, as the group, we started working on the different problems, started to read a lot about it, start to research, do some proof of concepts. And that's how it started. So from that, let's say task force, the project and the product AppCoins created, one of the first crypto projects in Portugal. At the time, together with Utrust as well. We launched more or less at the same time. Utrust is a completely different product. But yeah, that's how it started.
So very interesting. So it started to solve a problem that you guys didn't know how to solve, right? So can you be a little bit more specific which problem you ending up to solve in the end with one of the first cryptos in Portugal?
There were 2 major problems that we identified. One was the revenue share between the app developers, can be games, can be any kind of app, between the developers and the App Store itself. So Google, as well as Apple, they take a big slice of whatever purchase exists in in the store, right? In the application that's distributed through the store. And that was a problem. And the second one was for advertising. So the way it used to work, it doesn't work like that anymore, but the way it used to work is you have like these advertising networks that would, and any developer, any company could go there, create an advertising campaign, and then they would be published and distributed to those networks. And the App Store could be paid in different ways. It could be paid by downloads of an application. It could be paid in specific actions, which is now the more common process, that you show something. If you use an application that has ads, you see an application, you see that you have an ad, and then you are paid by showing the ad, but also by showing if the user does any specific action. But this was not that common. And we also wanted to have a way to, which was something that was very hard to do at the time. I mean, everything that we tried to do was very hard to do at the time, and I can go a bit more in that. But was try to say, how can we prove that someone actually saw the ad, without the user actually having to click anything and stuff like that. So, but yeah, those were the two major problems that we tried to solve, and blockchain and crypto at the time, it appeared to be a good solution for this. But it in some things I think we were a bit ahead of the time.
Too early, right? Because at that time,
a bit early.
Crypto was not that popular yet, and the problem that you are mentioning about the revenue sharing, I think it's still in, especially on Apple. A lot of people complain about their percentage.
Definitely, and today it would be much easier with all the L2s or alternative L1 networks in that are not, or where fees that you have to pay for each transaction, they are not so high, and some don't even have fees. But at the time we had Ethereum, where you could actually program or have code running on it, and the fees were very high. So to overcome this, we tried to use something that was really in the beginning, and we were in contact with their team directly. With the project was called the Raiden Network, and we were on contact with their team, try to see, okay, we are trying to use this is not working, and they were trying to helping us to put it to work. But that technology was the precursor of some things that we have, or the way we see some layer 2 networks that we have today. Like they are not the same. If anyone that's listening that knows about blockchain, don't get me wrong, they are not the same. But the way it worked, it was a bit more or less like these some L2s. Stuff happens there, and eventually the state is stored in the L1, for example, Ethereum. And that was already the idea of payment channels and state channels that they had. So again, this was a bit ahead of our time, of the technology's time, but it was very interesting to try to solve.
Yeah, I can imagine, because you're ending up to work with a similar technology nowadays at Zharta, right? That's how Zharta come up, and why you decided to go with Zharta.
So Zharta started much later than this. We started this. So Zharta has 3 founders: myself and Pedro Granat and Nuno Cortesão. We started discussing this somewhere in March 2021. So already 4 years after I was working at Upcoins. And we identified a possible niche market in this case in the NFT. So overall, what does Zharta do? Zharta is a protocol where anyone can get loans and give their NFTs as collateral. So not all NFTs are eligible for this, but we appraise NFTs in real time, and if people like the terms of the loan, they can get the loan instantly. And we started, so NFTs were getting like a huge boom in terms of users and activity. The majority of them, as in any bull run, they are worthless, but some of them we saw value in what the technology could offer, and not at that time, but in the future. So even not right now, but in the future, in different verticals. And we decided that, okay, maybe this is something that we can explore, and that's what we did. We started exploring the idea, started talking with some people, understanding what they think about this, and then it's some months later we all quit and started Zharta.
And when you started, I think the booming was still there, and right now nobody.
It was still there, yeah.
talks about NFTs anymore. Did this change anything about Zharta's strategy for the future, or the fundamentals remain the same?
I think the fundamentals remain the same, but the NFTs field is a very new field, which means that, I mean, NFTs are a technology; they are not a product, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you can use these non-fungible tokens to represent a lot of different things. And from all of these different things, several verticals come up. You have what people think NFTs are nowadays. Most of them are the PFPs, the profile pictures, the Bored Apes, all the other collections. You have art, digital art, which is expanding, are starting to have, and will have even more real world assets that are being digitized and into the digital world and being traded and used in crypto, because we can go there, but there's some advantages of doing so compared to the traditional world. And then there's all the other things that you can that you can create with NFTs, like gated access to specific to communities, to events. You can use the NFTs to represent your data that you can have on chain, and that your digital identity actually, that you can then let others use or have access to and revoke that access. And so NFTs are a way to represent things. It's then you can use them to represent whatever you want and create something out of it. There was this news on the Rolling Stone magazine and website that said 95% of NFTs are worthless, which is normal and expect, just like in startups, which is even higher than this, or any other collectibles, which is even more. This is like 99%. So that's the normal thing, right? It's not something bad. It's just say, okay, what's used to happen in the traditional world also happens here, which is to say that the majority of things that people create don't have value in the end for customers, right? It is what it is. It's the reality. And but so what we are trying to do, so the fundamentals exist, and what we try to understand is what are the verticals that we believe that will have most adoption and are closer to getting there. But the fundamentals in what we believe crypto is useful to, they remain the same.
On those 5% that survived the war, there was any of them that was surprising for you?
No, not really. Things are following like a trend that makes sense. Right? I mean, there are some NFTs today that still have value. Anyone outside of this bubble of crypto, which is a bubble, people that are outside of it maybe that don't understand. These PFPs that are valued at like 30K, 40, 50, 100,000. I mean, people from outside can look at this and see, why do these have this value? Are valued at such high prices? I also don't think they are valued, that they are that valued. Yeah. But they are making it their own path. You know, eventually they will, I think, will decrease in value, and other things that have more utility will increase in value. And value, of course, then value, we can define value in very different ways. Digital art, the value itself is, in my opinion, is the art, so it doesn't have to do anything, right? It just have to be something that you identify with and that you like. But other things, it will have value. Like if you think about gaming, and if sometimes it's hard for people to understand what is Web3 gaming, which is the expression that's used. I mean, Web3 gaming, if you think on Web3 gaming, like there will be assets that are created, can be NFTs, for example, that will be interruptible with different protocols, different projects, different games even. If you create a community that's very strong, it can be in the best interest of a game developer to integrate those NFTs directly in the game, because you will onboard or can onboard that community directly. You know, you don't need to create all of them from scratch and create a community from scratch, you know. And this can be very, very, very cool to a game. And if you think on traditional, let's say, big games that have items, assets inside the game that are valuable, and if you can use them to unblock different experiences, rent them, put them for a loan and get something out of it to do something else, play collectively with other people without having to actually trust the game publisher, the game company, and you can use those assets in other games, that's where the value is.
So if I hear correctly, basically the blockchain and the NFT, especially on the gaming part, is just providing more ways to creating value and more value itself for the things they are selling, right? Because the mechanics were already there, like buying a costume or buying a new sword. But with NFTs, you can have a better experience and you can allow this to more people at the same time, right? Yeah. So let's go maybe to the misconceptions that people have, because I think there is a lot of things going on, like a lot of information, and sometimes it's hard to know what is true and what is not true. And I think one of the things that blockchain brings is exactly more trust in the system. But if people don't know the system, they cannot create trust. So in your point of view, what is the main misconception that people have about crypto nowadays?
One of them, which I hear the most, is that it's only used for scams, money laundering, stuff like that. There have been a lot of scams. There have been a lot of exploits, which are not scams, but value extracting, so it's not good. And fraud, I think there's no denying that. But one thing that people sometimes don't see, I'd say, unfortunately, this is also amplified by media coverage, traditional media, even sometimes crypto-related media, which is weird because supposedly these people know what they're talking about, and also social media, because everyone is always connected nowadays, right? And all these parties, they work for engagement. Like you have websites that have like news on the minute. You have to say something, right? You have to generate engagement. In the past, when you had like new technology waves, this was not so much the case. And which means that there wasn't so much noise around what was happening. And there's a lot of noise around it. Most people don't understand is all these major events that are value extracting from regular people. And when I say majority of events, it's majority in terms of volume of the money. They have happened not in decentralized parties that are actually involved in the crypto ecosystem. They happened in centralized parties. So parties that were not transparent, that where you didn't actually own what you had and what the platform said that you had there. And so it's very different that in what you have fraud and scam, sometimes not scams, but fraud happening in these centralized entities. You can think of FTX, Celsius, Voyager, these bigger parties that were like centralized exchanges or lending partners that they would lend money to market makers to do their activities. They are all centralized. They are not decentralized. In the decentralized world, in terms of volume, what you see a lot is exploit. And that's a problem. When people are trying to do things that are very complex, mistakes happen and they can happen. We have to try to live with them and prepare for the worst, but we have to be careful. We have exploits happening, which is not fraud. I mean, there's no malicious intent from the teams and the companies that are working on those projects, but there were flaws that were exploited by someone else, which is a shame, of course, but to work to avoid these things from happening. Yeah, but crypto is not only for scams and frauds and stuff like that. That's I think the major misconception, and unfortunately that's simplified by everyone being connected so all the time and a lot of noise being generated around, which is a shame. Like, so for each 10 things, for each bad thing that happens, you need 10 very good news to try to overcome a piece of bad news, and it's hard.
Outside like of this world, like with banks, we had a lot of banks going bankrupt, and people continue to trust banks anyway because they don't have a good alternative yet, right? With crypto, it's exactly the same thing. We have projects that completely failed and there was people committing fraud. And then there is another ones that is just mistakes of being a new thing, like you said, and being a new technology. And we need to embrace those mistakes and learn from them.
Yeah, just to add one point to you, it's sometimes some people say that crypto needs to be regulated, and that up to a point I agree. But we cannot forget that the majority of fraud has happened at parties that were institutions that were regulated. That's not like a silver bullet. Yes, some parts of crypto need to be regulated, but it sometimes passes like, okay, if this is regulated, everything else is good, or all the problems will be solved. They won't, because regulation also doesn't work, because who needs to monitor these institutions also doesn't do it. So
yeah, I agree. And there is always corruption, right, that people can be misleading to. So we don't control all the variables, and always something bad can happen. And touching on that, so for someone that is not an expert in the area, how they can make sure they don't get this bad experience. So in your point of view, or what you've done before that allow you to not be scammed, basically, or to not go to these holes.
That's one of the issues right now with crypto in general, which is the user experience. Like it's not super easy to have your own setup, the way that you interact with all these products, all these crypto products, that keeps you safe. It's not easy in the world. I understand that for the majority of people, if you start describing what you need to do to mitigate the probability of getting scammed, it will be daunting. This is something that we as an industry, we need to solve. You have to do a lot of things, and you sometimes actually need to understand or verify product and the protocol that you are interacting with. I've seen that even people that have been in crypto for years get scammed, because scammers are getting more and more, which is also a problem. More and more, they are getting smarter. What they use is getting harder to differentiate between what's a scam and what isn't. And so you always need to be on top of what's happening there in scams to be able to identify them. which for the regular person that just wants to use the product and have the commodity of using it easily, seamlessly, the user experience is not there yet. So that's something that we need to work on. And we are, we at the industry to improve this, but it's difficult. And some things need to happen at the network level. So at the, like Ethereum, also Bitcoin and other networks, that needs to work there. And for networks that already exist for a while, I mean, you don't want to have downtime in a network. Say, okay, that cannot happen, right? And so doing these changes and deploying these changes while everything else is working, that's the hard part. And of course, newer protocols, newer networks can do this more easily because they don't have the legacy of what's already happening.
You think that's like the old networks are not doing better because they are afraid of being in a downtime and being forgotten somehow?
I think it's surprising that they are actually doing much better than the new networks, because even considering that they are moving slower in terms of development. And what it shows is that, network effects are real. So, and those network effects are keeping people in these. There are not many networks that have real network effects, but the ones that have, Ethereum, for example, they are keeping people in, even considering that there are fees to be paid and they are not small. But because people see the value here, there's a lot of value in the network. The same with Bitcoin, which is a different case in my opinion, but it's also happening. It also shows people that people trust what's been working for almost a decade or more than a decade in the case of Bitcoin than what's been working 1 year, 2 years, 6 months. It's different.
It takes time to get conquered. Yeah. And I think especially Ethereum, it's already in the game for since the beginning, so it's easier to gain that trust to people. Talking about more positive stuff, do you have like any predictions about how blockchain and crypto will like in a couple of years from now?
This is a very hard question, and I won't make it seem like I have like a crystal ball in front of me that I can predict the future. I can only say what I would like to happen. Mm-hmm. And what also, and that's aligned what we try to do at Zharta. I'm a big believer in self-sovereignty and in trustless and non-custodial systems. And I would like crypto to reach a state where the tools that we have overall easily enable those values to be embodied in all the products that exist in crypto. And I believe, and this is not something that's very hard to believe in, I believe that the future will be more digital, that the path that we've been on since the internet was created. And that means that our assets, whatever they are, even our identity, our lives, will become more digitized. We'll need the tools to trustlessly interact with our assets, with other people, with other companies, protocols, products, whatever. And that's where I see crypto playing a role. I use crypto a lot instead of Web3 because for me they are different. But yeah, that's what I hope. I hope that crypto reaches that state where anyone can use all these tools easily with a good UX, which is not the case right now, as I said. But that anyone can actually own their own identity, their own data, their own assets, and be comfortable with that, because with that also comes responsibilities. And right now it's very hard to have that responsibility because it's very easy, or it can be easy to get scammed. So yeah.
So you see the future as we having more ownership and more use cases for our digital entity, like
exactly.
Making sure that everyone is on the same field. And then you mentioned one thing, that Web3 and crypto are different. For people that are not from the area, how would you explain in a simple terms what Web3 is, blockchain, and crypto?
Well, I can't explain what's the difference, because it depends on who you talk to, and some people think for them, which is valid, and think there are no difference. But for me, it is. I mean, crypto, like the values made people start working on this field. They are very much glued to that cyberpunk kind of mentality, like trying to be sometimes outside of the system, or trying to not be controlled by the system. If you go beyond that very small niche, you have what I said, like what I'm a big believer in: self-sovereignty, trustless and non-custodial systems. And that's what crypto for me is. Web3 is I think it's a play with the concepts of what Web2 and Web1 are. or in case web 1 was, we don't have that much of it anymore, and tries to and I think it's a good effort trying to put these values of crypto to the masses and try to create a parallel to what web 2 is. But eventually I think that so many people come to the industry with the idea of making a very quick money and getting rich quickly. Just sometimes web 3 becomes harder to identify or harder to explain exactly what it is. In the last, I think, year, now you start seeing more what an expression which is web 2.5. Which is where most of crypto is, right? We are not in Web3 yet, right? Like there's a lot of things that are still centralized, or there are parts of products that are decentralized, but parts of the product that are still centralized. And sometimes there are good reasons for that. Zharta, for example, there are specific parts of the product, of the system that are still centralized because it's very hard to decentralize them right now, you know, and we could decentralize them already, all of it, but the experience for the user would be just terrible. So, but if you go, and this is my personal belief, that's it. If you go to the core of the values that made me personally come into this field, for me, that's crypto. And but that's it. It's not very easy sometimes to explain for people to understand.
No, it's a complex world. It's a new world, and there is a lot of people with different opinions. So I think that's normal.
Yeah, definitely. And they are good. Different opinions are good. Discussion is good.
And needed, because otherwise we wouldn't be on this stage. And what I'm feeling, it's we are still in the beginning, and I think there is still much more to do. And I think in this conversation was very in a big picture way to understand a bit the world. And if people are just starting, there is a lot of information on the internet. People already know some things. They probably can reach out to you and have interesting conversation about the topic. Just looking to the time, I have 3 more questions to you. They are a bit more personal, so not Web3 related, but it's for people to get to know you a little bit better. My first question is, what annoys you on other people?
My wife would say that there's a lot of things that annoy me, and that's true. But sometimes pinpointing exactly what annoys me, like out of the blue, sometimes I think sometimes it's hard. One thing that annoys me is lack of structure and organization, especially like in the work environment, or not necessarily at Zharta, but overall. I mean, if you're not organized, at least a bit, that will pass to people around you, especially if you're a leader or a manager or a founder, and everyone is very interconnected with each other. And I don't want to say that people need to be hyper organized and hyper structured, especially not through the startup again.
Exactly.
But you need to be focused on what you're doing and what creates more value, and you need to be able to have others around you think the same and see what you see. So, and if you don't have structure, and again, some organization, you'll be in your little world, in your head, where things work and make sense to you, but people won't understand you, and you'll have trouble committing to what you need them or what you'd like them to commit to. And if you're a leader or founder in a startup, people expect from you clarity in the vision and clarity in the communication. They expect in the end that you know what you're doing and you know where we all should go, right? If you're not organized, that's passed to the rest of the people around you. And this is very important in terms of culture. Culture is what you do and what you show and how you behave with others, right? And if you do something else, that's what the culture of the company will be, not what you said. Another thing that annoys me is when I can't understand the logical reasoning behind someone else's actions or behaviors. Like, and this can happen everywhere, even on traffic, you know? Yeah. It's like you see something and you have, with the information that you have, which sometimes can be incomplete, so that sometimes can be also your fault. But with the information that you have, if you look at someone else behaving in a certain way that you can't understand what's the logical reasoning behind it, that annoys me a lot.
One of the things that I have been reading, it's like the culture, it's how people behave when the boss or the manager is not there. If they behave differently or if they behave the same. And that might not be written anywhere, but will have a lot of impact. So we can write a lot of fancy stuff, but then if we don't live it, it's not worth it. Second question, what is the person that, dead or alive, you would like to have a lunch with?
I think this is a bit of cliche, but I would say it's Elon Musk, so he's alive. I think that a lot of people would answer the same thing. I don't necessarily agree with a lot of what he says and with some of his views. That's for sure. But I think it's undeniable that either we like it or not, that he's changing the world with everything he's doing and has been doing. If you think about Tesla or Neuralink or SpaceX or X, which is Twitter, or Starlink. I mean, for me, the most interesting thing is to try to have a conversation with him and see what he sees, or try to understand how he thinks, how he reasons. There must be something there so that he can, of course, create so much impact. Agree or disagree that the impact is good or bad, but nevertheless, he is able to have that amount of impact.
I think the impact will always be good and bad at the same time. So there will be things that work well, but sometimes they have drawbacks, right? So the electric cars, sometimes they have accidents, but maybe in the future they will avoid 99% of the accidents that we have on the road. So I think there is always another side of the coin, and usually people only see one side. Even us, we always have like a good and bad side of ourselves. So we are people in the end of the day, and I think having that opportunity of having a lunch with Elon Musk will be also something that I would like to join you, Diogo, if we can.
I will invite you.
Cool. Last question. So if you could give any advice for your younger self, what that will be?
I would maybe say that you don't need to do everything at once. That it's okay to choose something that you really like and keep with it for some time. Because if you're someone with a lot of interests in different fields, and you have friends working on those different fields, it's hard for you to not pursue all of them, because you may be afraid of getting behind. To my maybe 24-year-old self, that's okay to not do everything at once. It's okay to feel that you're getting behind, and to focus on something that you really like and be really good at it.
One more time, we need to make decisions and stick with them and see if they work. But sometimes when we are always switching, we don't take the benefits from it. And I think you are also taking now the benefits of working in crypto 5-6 years ago. And that only can grow, right? Because your experience is already more reduced, and you can do more stuff, more people.
Definitely.
So I think that's a snowball effect that people can have if they stick in the same industry. Of course, that you have disadvantage, right? You won't see maybe other things that you would like to do, but you made a decision and you live with it.
Exactly.
Yeah, cool. Diogo, thanks a lot for this conversation. I think it was super useful. And do you have any other tips, recommendations about Web3 or crypto that you'd like to share with our audience?
If you want to get in the field and explore stuff, be careful. Read a lot about it online. Talk with people that you already know that maybe are in crypto. You can reach out to me if you want as well. There's a saying in crypto which is trust but verify. Yeah, but don't be too afraid to take risks. Don't do stuff with money or assets that you can't live without. But don't be too afraid to take risks.
Yeah, good points. And how people can find more about Zharta? Twitter or any other channel?
You can go to Twitter, you can go to LinkedIn. There's also a lot of links there. You can go to the website, of course, zharta.io. Yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah, cool. Thanks a lot, Diogo. Thanks a lot for coming, and thanks a lot, everyone, for joining us. And we will see us the next time on the third episode. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.